Maya had always been a quiet woman who liked empty places more than crowded streets and loud rooms. She worked many years in small offices where every day felt the same and every voice sounded tired. Inside her heart she wanted space and air and silence that felt alive. One evening while scrolling on her phone she saw an ad for an abandoned airfield far outside a small dying town. The price was low, so low that it felt unreal. Most people would laugh at such an offer, but Maya felt something else. A pull she could not explain. She visited the place the very next day. Tall grass covered the old runway, broken fences leaned in the wind, rusted hangars stood like tired giants under the wide sky. The silence was deep and steady. The town nearby had only a few homes left, and most windows were dark. The airfield felt forgotten by time, and that is why she bought it with nearly all her savings. Friends said she was making a mistake. They said the land was useless and lonely, and full of bad history, but Maya did not care. She wanted to start again and build a quiet life where no one told her who she should be. On her first full day alone at the airfield she walked slowly across the cracked runway. The wind moved the grass like slow water waves, and the sky looked bigger than it ever had in the city. She imagined turning the main hangar into a workshop and the small building into a simple home. She felt hope growing inside her for the first time in many years. But as she walked behind the largest hangar, her foot struck something solid hidden beneath the dirt. She bent down and pushed the grass aside with her hand. It felt like metal. She grabbed a shovel and began digging slowly. The sound that came back to her ears was not like stone or wood. It was hollow and deep. After some time a round metal shape appeared beneath the soil, thick and heavy with rust covering its surface. Her heart began to race. This was no normal object and no part of any airfield she had ever seen. She pushed dirt away until the full outline came into view. It was a sealed hatch with a handle at the center. She tried to pull it, but it would not move at all. The earth had held it tight for many years. She stood there breathing hard, filled with questions that had no answers. That night she barely slept. Her mind stayed on the buried hatch below the hangar. In the morning she called the only person she trusted with strange work. His name was Sam. He was a mechanic who fixed old machines and did not ask too many questions. By sunset Sam arrived in a dusty truck and walked the airfield slowly, taking in the broken hangars and silent runway. When he saw the hidden hatch his face changed at once and the easy smile he carried faded. This is not part of any normal build, he said quietly. They spent many hours digging around the edges until the full hatch was clear. The metal was thick and heavy, and deep scratch marks covered the surface as if something once pushed hard against it from below. Maya stepped back when she saw them. A chill passed through her arms. Sam placed a thick bar under the handle and pushed with all his strength. The hatch resisted, then slowly began to move. With a long loud groan dust poured out in a heavy cloud, and cold air rushed upward from below. When the hatch opened fully, darkness waited under it. A metal ladder descended into the shadows so deep that even light could not reach the bottom. For some time neither of them moved. It felt as if the open ground was watching them. That night they left it open but covered it with boards and cloth, and returned the next morning with lights, rope, and safety gear. Maya insisted on going first. Each step down the ladder echoed softly. The walls were smooth, cold concrete. The deeper she went the colder the air became. When her feet reached the floor she stood in a wide underground hall built with careful order. Doors branched off in different directions. The place was clean and untouched, as if it had been sealed and forgotten but never damaged. Sam followed soon after, his breathing loud with tension. They moved slowly from room to room. One held tables with chairs still pushed in. Another had wall maps of the surrounding region pinned in rows. Another room held metal shelves stacked with sealed containers covered in dust. There were empty beds against one wall, and lockers filled with old uniforms that carried no names, only numbers. Everything pointed to a place that had once been busy yet silent. Then they reached the final door. It was larger and thicker than the others and secured with heavy locks. Sam used his tools, and after long effort, the door opened with a sharp sound. Inside, rows of wooden crates filled the room, stacked in neat lines, each one marked with numbers, but no words. Maya felt her chest grow tight. Sam whispered that someone wanted these hidden forever. Maya stepped closer to the nearest crate and placed her hand on its surface. The wood felt cold and dry. She did not open it yet. Above them the wide sky stretched clean and quiet, unaware of the secret buried beneath it. And in that moment Maya understood that buying the abandoned airfield had not only given her land and silence, it had given her a doorway into a forgotten past that had waited many years for someone to find it. Maya stood still in front of the wooden crates inside the hidden room, her hand resting lightly on the cold rough surface, as if the wood itself held a memory. Sam remained a few steps behind her, watching the walls, the ceiling, the locked door, the quiet that felt heavier than the soil above them. The air inside the bunker felt thick and still, like it had not moved for many years. Maya finally pulled her hand away from the first crate and looked at Sam, her eyes full of fear and wonder at the same time. "We should open one," she said softly. Sam nodded, though his face showed doubt. They chose the smallest crate near the front. Sam used a metal tool to slowly lift the lid. The sound echoed low and slow through the room when the lid came free. A rush of cold air escaped from inside the box. Both of them leaned closer, expecting to see something strange or dangerous. Instead, they found neatly packed folders wrapped in oilcloth, old papers, maps, and sealed envelopes stacked with care. Maya reached inside and pulled one bundle free. The cloth came away easily, revealing faded maps of the airfield and the nearby land. But these maps showed more than runway lines and hangars. They showed underground paths marked with careful lines. Deep below the ground, Sam leaned over her shoulder and whispered, "This place is bigger than we thought." They opened more crates as they moved deeper into the room, and each box held more signs of planning: old radio parts, sealed containers of dry supplies, uniform pieces, boots, helmets, and thick instruction books written in firm, clear handwriting. Not a sign of panic or rush anywhere in the bunker. Everything had been left as if the people planned to return one day. Maya began to feel a weight settle into her chest, because places are only built like this for serious reasons. They moved back into the main hall and followed one of the side paths downward into a lower section. The lights showed a long, narrow passage leading to a heavy steel door beyond it. Sam worked on the lock for some time until the door opened with a dull sound. Inside, they found a radio room filled with old machines, panels, switches, wires, and tall antenna control units. Some still showed faded labels on their fronts. Maya ran her hand over one of the panels and felt dust lift from its surface. Sam checked the power lines and shook his head. "No power for a very long time," he said, yet the room felt ready, like it was only sleeping. They returned to the center hall and sat on one of the old benches to rest. Neither of them spoke for a while. The silence felt full of unanswered questions. Who built this place? Why was it hidden? And why did no record of it exist above ground? Maya finally spoke. "Maybe this was built during some secret work long ago," Sam replied. "Or maybe it was meant to stay secret forever." The thought made Maya uneasy. She realized that owning the land meant she now owned whatever rested beneath it as well. With that ownership came a burden of choice. They spent the rest of the day exploring every room, taking careful steps, writing notes and marking paths with chalk so they would not lose their way. They found sealed water tanks, sleeping rooms with simple beds, a cooking area with long cold stoves, and a medical room with metal tables and locked cabinets. Even the medical tools were neatly arranged, as if waiting for hands to return. That evening, when they climbed back into the open air, the sky was painted with deep orange and soft shadows stretched across the runway. Maya breathed deeply as warm wind touched her face. The quiet above felt strange now after the hidden cold below. She looked at the land differently, no longer just empty space, but a cover for deep history. Sam packed his tools slowly, while thinking hard. "You should tell someone," he said. "Authorities, maybe historians." Maya looked at the ground and shook her head. "Not yet," she replied. "I need to understand first." Sam respected her choice, but warned her to be careful. Whatever this place was, it could draw unwanted attention. After Sam left, Maya stayed alone in the hangar that night. Unable to sleep inside her small trailer, she walked the runway under the stars, listening to distant night sounds from the fields beyond the fence. She felt as if the land itself had begun to breathe again. After years of silence, days passed as she returned again and again to the bunker alone, recording notes and slowly organizing the rooms. She studied the instruction books from the crates and saw that many focused on communication, survival, and long isolation. One book described how to block all signals from the surface and how to send coded messages beyond the region. This made her feel cold. Maybe this place was built for disaster or war. That idea stayed with her like a shadow. One morning, while cleaning one of the deeper halls, she noticed a section of wall that did not match the others. It looked newer, different in color and texture. She pressed against it and felt a hollow space behind the concrete. Her heart began to race again. She searched for a hidden latch, and after some effort found a small metal switch hidden inside a wall groove. When she pulled it, a part of the wall slowly slid away, revealing another unopened passage. The air that came from it was colder than the rest, and carried a faint smell of metal and old oil. She stood frozen for some time, unsure if she should step inside. The bunker already held more than she expected, but this new passage felt different, heavier. She returned above ground and called Sam again, telling him only that she found another section. He arrived before sunset that day. They entered together and moved slowly down the hidden passage. Their lights revealed thick cables running along the walls leading deep into the earth. At the end of the path, they found a wide round chamber unlike any other room they had seen before. At its center stood a tall metal structure covered in heavy cloth. Sam stepped closer and carefully pulled the cloth aside. Beneath it stood a large sealed unit with control panels and thick glass Windows filled with dust. Maya felt her breath catch. That is not storage, she whispered. Sam studied the markings and shook his head slowly. Whatever this is, it was important, powerful, and not meant to be found by accident. Maya felt fear rise inside her for the first time since discovering the bunker. She now understood that the airfield was not just hiding supplies or records, it was hiding something built with purpose and strength. That night as they left the bunker once more, Maya looked back at the hangar, the runway, and the wide quiet land. She realized that buying the abandoned airfield had changed her life in ways she could never have planned, and whatever secret slept beneath the ground was beginning to awaken with her discovery. Maya stood in the wide round chamber with the hidden machine before her, while Sam moved slowly around the edges, studying every cable and panel with careful eyes. The tall sealed unit glowed faint under the beam of their lights, but gave no sound, no movement, no sign of life, yet the air around it felt heavy, as if the room itself was aware of their presence. Maya felt a strange pull toward the glass window at the front of the unit. She stepped closer and wiped dust away with her sleeve. Inside, she saw layers of thick coils, metal frames, and a central core shaped like a smooth dark stone. It did not look like any machine she had ever seen. Sam whispered that this was not built for simple power or storage, and his voice held both awe and fear. Maya asked what he thought it was, and he shook his head, saying that whatever its purpose, it had been made with great care and long planning. They walked around it in silence until Maya noticed a narrow console hidden behind the main frame, covered in old switches, and a flat control panel. She reached toward it, but hesitated, feeling that a single touch might change everything. Sam placed a hand on her arm gently and told her to wait. They should not rush what they did not understand. They left the chamber as night fell and returned to the surface where the sky was filled with stars. Maya felt the airfield no longer felt empty, but full of unseen weight, as if deep beneath the ground something ancient had begun to turn in its sleep. She barely slept that night. Dreams of low hums, hidden lights, and long silent halls filled her mind. At sunrise, she returned alone to the bunker, driven by a need she could not explain, to understand why this place had been built and why it had waited for her. She reopened the crates in the sealed room and began to read deeper into the books and records. Some spoke of long isolation, preparation for unseen events, and strict orders to protect a central system at all cost. They spoke of teams rotating in secret without outside contact, and of one final command that ordered the bunker sealed and abandoned. Maya felt cold as she read the final pages, which ended suddenly without explanation. She returned again to the hidden chamber and stood before the tall machine. Placing her hand on the metal frame, she felt faint warmth beneath the surface, not heat, but something like stored energy. She pulled back in shock as the glass inside the unit slowly cleared on its own, revealing faint light pulsing deep within the core. Her breath caught, and her heart began to race. She had not touched the console. She had pressed any switch, yet the machine was responding. She took a step back, then another, watching the pulse grow brighter and steadier. A low sound filled the chamber, soft but deep, like a slow heartbeat. Maya whispered, "It's awake," without knowing why she said those words. Above ground, the wind shifted suddenly across the airfield, lifting dust and grass as if answering the sound from below. Maya ran back to the surface and called Sam with shaking hands. He arrived within the hour, and together they returned to the chamber where the hum had grown stronger. The glass now glowed with steady light, and faint shapes moved within the core like flowing shadows. Sam stared in disbelief, saying the machine must have been waiting for a trigger, power from the land, from movement, from something that changed above. Maya realized that buying the airfield, clearing the soil, and opening the bunker may have completed a lock that held the system asleep for decades. Sam searched the outer frame and found a powered line that should have been dead, yet now carried low current drawn from deep underground, or from the air itself. He could not tell. They both understood now that the machine was not a passive object. It was active, it was aware in some way, and it had begun to awaken because the world above had changed. Later that day, a group of strangers arrived at the edge of the airfield, 2 vehicles dusted from long travel, their dark windows hiding the faces inside. Maya watched from the hangar as unseen eyes studied the land. Sam whispered that this timing was not a chance. The vehicles did not stay long and left without a word, but their presence planted fear deep inside Maya. That night, she locked every door and window she could, and kept the bunker sealed again, covering the hatch as it once was. Yet she knew that what was beneath could no longer be hidden forever. The hum deep below continued, faint but steady, even through 5 layers of earth and concrete. She could feel it through her feet as she lay awake. She understood now that the airfield had never been abandoned. It had been placed into silence, waiting for the right moment, and somehow that moment had arrived with her choice to buy forgotten land and give it life again. Days passed, and more signs appeared. Power flickers in the nearby town, radio signals that bent and whispered in strange tones across old channels, and strange lights far above the airfield. At night, Sam returned with news that others were searching, asking questions about old Survey records and underground builds. Maya understood then that those who built the machine had never fully vanished, and those who had waited for it to rise again were still watching from hidden places. She returned to the chamber alone one final time, standing before the glowing glass, and spoke softly to it, asking what it was built for, asking why it had waited so long. She felt no answer in words, but the light within shifted and formed lines like moving symbols flowing slowly across the inner surface, a message written not in language but in motion. She understood then that the machine did not hold danger alone, it held knowledge, power, memory, and a purpose older than any record left in the crates. She placed her palm on the glass again without fear, and felt warmth spread through her hand, her mind filled with images of open skies, rebuilt land, and distant voices reaching across unseen space. Maya pulled back in awe, knowing she now stood between two worlds, the quiet life she had wanted above and the living secret that stirred below, and she knew that soon she would have to choose whether to protect this hidden truth, or reveal it to a world that was not ready to understand what had awakened beneath an abandoned airfield. Maya stood at the edge of the airfield as the early light spread across the quiet land. The wind moved softly through the tall grass, and for a moment, everything looked calm, yet deep beneath her feet, the hidden machine continued its steady low hum, a sound she now felt inside her chest, as much as she heard with her ears. Sam stood beside her, watching the distant road where the strange vehicles had been seen days before. The land did not feel empty anymore. It felt like a secret that could no longer sleep. Maya knew the time had come to choose whether to hide what she had found or face whatever waited beyond the silence below. They returned to the bunker together for the last time, passing through the hidden wall, and walking the long cold path toward the glowing chamber. The light inside the glass was stronger now, flowing like a slow-moving river of pale color. The shapes within shifted with calm purpose, as if the machine sensed their arrival. Maya stepped closer, without fear, and placed both hands against the glass, feeling warmth spread across her palms. Her mind filled again with open skies and distant voices, but now the images were clearer. She saw wide fields turned green after long dry seasons. She saw people standing together beneath rebuilt towers. She felt the weight of many years of waiting, and the machine showed her not danger, but the burden of memory. Sam watched in silence as she lowered her hands and turned to him. Her voice was steady when she spoke, and she told him the truth as she now understood it, that the machine was not a weapon, and not a tool of destruction, but a system meant to preserve knowledge and signal hope across great distances. During a time when people feared that all might be lost, it had been built to wait in silence, to send a message when the world above was ready to listen. Sam listened with wide eyes, and when she finished he asked why it had awakened. Now Maya looked back at the softly glowing core and answered that perhaps it was because the land had been given life again, and silence had been broken by choice rather than fear. Above ground the sound of engines grew nearer, and this time the vehicles did not stop at the edge of the airfield. They drove straight toward the hangars, raising dust behind them. Sam whispered that the watchers had returned, and this time they were not hiding. Maya felt fear rise in her chest, but she also felt resolve settle beside it. She understood that hiding the truth now would only invite greater danger and greater silence. She took a deep breath and stepped fully into the chamber, returning her hands to the glass with clear purpose. The light inside the core answered her touch, and grew brighter than ever before. The hum rose in strength, filling every hall and room of the bunker, and rising through the layers of earth above, as if the land itself had begun to speak. Sam shielded his eyes from the growing glow, as lines of light streamed upward through hidden vents toward the open sky above. At the same moment the vehicles reached the hangar, and strangers stepped out, their faces tense and focused. They looked up in shock as beams of pale light rose from the ground around them, cutting through the morning air, and reaching high into the clouds. The entire airfield shimmered with quiet power, and the sky seemed to listen. In that instant Maya felt the final message move through her mind, not in words, but in feeling, that the time for waiting had ended, and the time for sharing had begun. The watchers stood frozen, unable to stop what they did not understand, and Sam realized that whatever the machine was designed to do, it was now fulfilling its purpose without fear, and without force. The light slowly faded from the sky, and the hum softened into a deep calm. Silence beneath the earth. Once more the strangers retreated without a word, returning to their vehicles, and leaving the airfield as quickly as they had arrived, as if a boundary they could not cross had been drawn in air and light. Maya stood still, feeling the last warmth fade from the glass beneath her hands, and she knew the machine was now at rest, not asleep, but complete. Sam looked at her with quiet awe, and asked what would happen next, and Maya answered that now the truth would move across the world in ways no one could control, not as a secret buried in fear, but as a signal of memory, hope, and patience. They sealed the bunker not to hide it this time, but to protect it, until the world came seeking with open hands rather than closed ones. And as they returned to the open land above, Maya looked across the airfield, no longer as a place of abandonment, but as a bridge between what had been lost and what could be rebuilt under the wide sky she had once sought for peace, and found instead a purpose larger than she had ever imagined, and in that quiet new beginning she felt no regret for the choice she had made when she bought forgotten land, and gave hidden light a path to rise again.